What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another episode of What's the Word, Dirty Bird, season 3. And you guys know I come at you guys every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys for continuing to tune in. Um, Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple different things tonight. Lamar Jackson. We're going to talk about free agency. And then, of course, we're going to answer you guys' questions as well. But I hope you guys are having a great week so far. It's been a very interesting week. A lot of NFL news dropping. And I expect things to really heat up as we continue into next week with free agency opening up and things of that nature. I definitely expect things to really pick up. But like I said, we got a lot to talk about tonight, so I'm not going to belabor the time, but I do want to jump in the chat and just say what's up to the people that's already in the chat. I appreciate you guys joining already tonight. So first off, Robert Ponder, what's going on, man? He says, now that the Lamar Jackson saga is over, we can talk about these 10 draft picks in 7 rounds that we have. Most definitely. What's going on, Pat Norris? What's up, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as always. Joseph Thornton, what's happening, man? I appreciate you joining as well. Ms. Pamela Johnson, what's going on? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. Michael Walker, yes, your boy Jew. What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight. Nathan Floyd, what's going on, man? Sonia Howell, what's happening? My boy Mad Mike said, was I? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well as always, man. That's 1/3 of the heavy hitters. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into a few more names that I see that's recently jumped in really quick. Andrew G, what's happening, man? That's one of my members of my channel, so shouts out to Andrew G for holding it down. And that's the wife right there, Teacher Red. What's going on, baby? She says, share out this live stream to your fellow Falcons fans. Yeah, Falcons fans, NFL fans in general, definitely share out the show. Share out all of our content, not just my show, but Atlanta Falcons Nation. Share out their shows as well. Mad Mike Sports, Six Man K Styles. Y'all definitely continue to share out our content. We appreciate you guys for continuing to support us. ATL Leo said, what's up, everyone? What's going on, man? D Coleman is in the chat as well. What's going on? Yasuke Knight, what's happening, man? I appreciate you always supporting the channel as well. King Me, he says, Mr. Jew, hey, what's going on, man? I appreciate it. New Flame, I guess that's New Flame Entertainment. What's going on, man? I appreciate it. And Rounds One says, hey, Jew in chat. What's going on, man? So I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in tonight. Like, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, if you haven't hit that like button, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. But we're going to jump into some quick Atlanta Falcons news first, and then we'll get into some Lamar Jackson talk. And also I'll answer some of you guys' questions as the night goes on. I usually am on for about an hour or so. Last week, I think it was on for like an hour and 20 minutes. So we'll see how things go tonight. But first off, Atlanta Falcons news. We're going to jump right into it. Lorenzo Carter did sign a 2-year extension with our Atlanta Falcons, which I did do a video on my channel. If you guys didn't get to see it, it was like maybe a week or two ago. And I wanted Lorenzo Carter to be re-signed by the Atlanta Falcons, and he was released by the team. So I was really shocked to see that he got released and end up re-signing with the Atlanta Falcons. So I do think that this is a huge move for our Atlanta Falcons. I do think that Lorenzo Carter is one of those guys for our Atlanta Falcons that's one of the glue guys to this Atlanta Falcons defense. And you guys know that I'm huge on the trenches. You guys know that I'm huge on building depth. And I really think with them bringing back Lorenzo Carter to the team, especially because it was on a team-friendly type deal. For what I'm hearing, it was like $9 million. So he's making around $4.5 million a year or something like that. So that was really a reasonable deal. And the way that he played for us last season, pretty much was our best edge rusher. Had some big splash plays in key games. Had 2 touchdowns, an interception, for a return for a touchdown against Carolina, the block punt by Troy Anderson against the LA Rams. And he picked the ball up and scored a touchdown in that game as well. So he played a key role for our Atlanta Falcons last year. And with Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith talking about us going after more players that are, Georgia natives or from the state of Georgia, I think it was a no-brainer to bring back a guy like Lorenzo Carter. I do think he'll fit in Ryan Nielsen's scheme. Another thing that I think is kind of going overlooked last year with Lorenzo Carter is he was a guy that played a lot of snaps last year. He played 80% of the snaps, which is a lot of snaps for a defensive lineman or an outside linebacker. But I think another reason why they wanted to keep Lorenzo Carter on his team is not only his ability to play defense and be versatile, but he's also a guy who was a key special teams, a guy who can play special teams. So because he's one of those versatile guys and the Falcons like guys that can play special teams, that can do multiple things, I really think that this is a great signing by our Falcons. And I see a couple of you guys, I did drop it on my community tab where I basically showed a picture of Lorenzo Carter basically signing his new deal. And I see you guys was excited about him signing. But I definitely think this is a key signing for our Atlanta Falcons. And tonight I want to talk about the Falcons and their depth and bringing in, building a complete team. And I think that this was a perfect first signing for the Atlanta Falcons. He was the first guy to re-sign with the team. So definitely think that this is a great pickup for our team. And do want to jump back into the chat really quick and just say what's up to a couple of you guys that recently joined. Kenneth Lewis, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight. He says, what up, Jew and AFN fam? What's happening, man? Floyd Donnelly, he says, straightforward, direct, Jew Talk Sports. Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. Let's see. Let's get back Evans and Oliver. Yeah, I definitely think, D. Coleman, that Evans and Oliver possibly could be guys we bring back. Definitely Evans. If they don't bring back Oliver, I definitely think out of those two, you definitely got to bring back Rashaan Evans. But I think they should bring back both. But we'll see what happens. But I definitely think Evans should definitely be back. A lot of people are talking about Bobby Wagner and talking about a lot of the other guys that were recently let go. Kendricks from the Vikings. Personally, I would rather have back Rashaan Evans because he's still one of the younger linebackers, and he played really well for us last year, almost 200 tackles. So you definitely got to bring back Lorenzo Carter because he knows the scheme. He's familiar with the players as far as the camaraderie of the locker room and stuff like that, and he balled out last year. So I definitely think Rashaan Evans has to come back, and then Oliver is one of those guys. We know that Mad Mike loves Isaiah Oliver. He's one of those guys that can play safety, can play that rover type position where he's kind of like a big nickel linebacker at the time. I think he would fit this scheme as well. But if you don't bring him back, I definitely think that there's some guys in this free agency and in the draft that you possibly can replace Isaiah Oliver, depending on how much money he wants. But I would try bringing him back as well because he's a key component to that Dean Pease defense. I don't know about Ryan Nielsen, but I think there's always space for a guy that's versatile. So I definitely would think about bringing him back as well. Let's see here. Tydrick Davis, what's going on, man? He says, would you sign Khalil Mack or Leonard Floyd? That's a very interesting question. I think you go with Khalil Mack. I mean, Khalil Mack is a guy who's good at stopping the run and good at rushing the passer, and he's kind of like a game wrecker. I don't think with Leonard Floyd, he's not really a guy that's a game wrecker. He's a guy to me that's really like a pass rush specialist. So you'll use him kind of like on third downs. He's similar to like a D'Angelo Malone. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to use in all three downs, but I wouldn't mind having Leonard Floyd. I think Leonard Floyd would be the cheaper option, but if I had to choose, I'm taking Khalil Mack every day of the week. Like Khalil Mack, when he's at the top of his game, at one point he was like a top 5 edge rusher or a defensive end or outside linebacker. Leonard Floyd is a guy that you can rotate in, and he's a really a decent pass rusher, but he's a more so I would take Khalil Mack in that instance. But I appreciate the question. Let's see here. And Mike comes with the question. He says, what's the most important aspect of the Falcons coaching staff in your opinion? That's a tough one personally, I think with this Atlanta Falcons team, I think it's all about really Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith really is the leader of this team because he's the head coach on staff. I think that we always go back to what Arthur Smith said originally when he was hired as the coach, that he doesn't have all the answers and that he's going to bring in coaches and bring in different, offensive and defensive minds that bring something different to the table. And I think as long as Arthur Smith keeps that mindset that he's going to bring in new coaches, that's going to bring new ideas, and he's not going to think that he has all the answers and kind of start smelling himself and thinking that he has all of the answers, similar to what kind of happened with Dan Quinn. And to me, what was Dan Quinn's downfall was kind of him thinking that he had all the answers. So I think the biggest aspect, or the most important aspect of the Falcons coaching staff, really, in my opinion, would be Arthur Smith continuing to be collaborative, like bringing in different ideas, bringing in new ideas and different defensive and offensive minds. And I think we're seeing that this offseason with the guys they brought in, Ryan Nielsen, Jerry Gray. They're bringing in different guys that have experience, but may think a little bit different than Arthur Smith, or may think a little bit different, or go outside of the box a little bit, outside of maybe what Dean Pease wanted to do with the defense. So I definitely think that would be the biggest aspect, is just him staying humble and him bringing in, different guys that can bring different ideas. You may not always agree, but sometimes disagreeing is a good thing. So that's what I would state. And Ghost Peppers, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. My boy Jamarius, what's going on? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. I hope everything's going well with you. He says we got Mr. Carter. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, Lorenzo Carter is a guy that's kind of a hidden gem. I think his ceiling is still high. Like, I don't think that he's kind of hit his ceiling. He's still a young player, and I think that he still can continue to develop. And hopefully Ryan Nielsen can bring the best out of him, similar to what he did with guys like Trey Hendrickson with the Saints. So he's known as one of those guys that's basically a defensive line coach. So hopefully he can get the best out of our young, D'Angelo Malones, the Evan Katie's, the Ogun Dages of the world. Hopefully he can get the best out of those guys. And New Flame Entertainment says, speaking of depth, should we go after Leonard Fournette if he falls off the market and is super cheap? I'm good on Leonard Fournette, to be honest. I'm really good on Leonard Fournette. I think at this point, Leonard Fournette is kind of beat up at this point. If he was playing at the top of his game, I don't think that the Buccaneers would have allowed him to walk, or, in free agency, or released him. So at this point, I'm good on Leonard Fournette. I think we have a good stable of running backs. Like, I like Tyler Algier. I like Caleb Huntley, as you mentioned, that went down with an injury last year. He ran hard. And then I think the Falcons are going to draft a running back. You guys know the running back that I'm looking at. I want Tank Bigsby from Auburn, War Eagle. Yeah, y'all know that I want Tank Bigsby. I'm a huge Tank Bigsby fan. He showed out at the combine and turned a lot of heads there at the combine. So hopefully he's still on the board, but we have an opportunity to get him. But he's one of those guys that I think would be a good running back to mix in with a Tyler Algier. He's a little bit more fleet of foot, like faster, and better in cuts and things of that nature. Algier is kind of just a downhill runner, but Tank Bigsby is a guy who can do it all. Catch the ball out of the backfield, a little bit more elusive than Tyler Algier or Caleb Huntley, but he's a guy, if he hit a crease, he can take it to the house. He has that speed. So I definitely think that Tank Bigsby would be the guy I would go with. He's just as physical, not as physical maybe as a Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette's a little bit bigger than him as far as size, but he runs as hard as a Leonard Fournette. So let's see. And what's going on, Dre Harrison? He says the only way I'll be okay with Evans is if we somehow get Khalil Mack in free agency. I mean, I think you may be referring to Rashaan Evans. If you're talking about Rashaan Evans, I wouldn't bank on whether we, re-sign Khalil Mack. I like Rashaan Evans. I think he should be the next player that we should sign, to be honest. On defense, if you want to keep your defensive core that you had last year and continue to grow and, take that next step on defense, he was the leader of the defense. Rashaan Evans, that dude had like 150 plus tackles. So you got to bring back Rashaan Evans to me. All these other guys that that have the big names, the Bobby Wagners. To me, he's on the back end of his career. Even like the Levante Davids. I heard Levante David is a free agent. I still would go with Rashaan Evans because he'll probably be cheaper because he's not the big premium type name that everybody knows. And he's still a really good player. So I would stick with Rashaan Evans, man. I know a lot of people might not want to hear that, but Rashaan Evans played well last year. Our defense wasn't the best, but that wasn't Rashaan Evans' fault. He was one of the bright spots on the defense. And Mario Brown says, since we are not going after Lamar, what do you think we do at quarterback to challenge Ritter? And since you mentioned that, let's go ahead and talk about that before I jump in. And shouts out to Miss Maggie T as well. What's going on, Miss Maggie? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. Y'all go show Miss Maggie some love. AFN, y'all go hit that like and subscribe button for my sis over there. But I appreciate you joining as well. But let's go ahead and talk about Lamar Jackson, because he was recently tagged, as we know, the unexclusive tag 2 days ago, I think it was, or was it yesterday? All of my days are starting to mix together now. But yeah, Lamar Jackson did get franchise tagged, and he talked about us challenging Desmond Ritter. But I kind of just want to talk about the Lamar Jackson situation really quick, because I've been hearing a lot of stuff, coming out. ESPN, Fox Sports 1. The guys yesterday was talking about Lamar Jackson, and pretty much everybody's talking about Lamar Jackson. It's the hot topic right now. So personally, where I stand, we all know that the Falcons did come out and kind of state that we're not looking to sign Lamar Jackson, that we're comfortable where we're at, whether that's sticking with Desmond Ritter or whether that's signing or drafting a quarterback in this upcoming draft or bringing in a veteran, to back up Desmond Ritter. Personally, I don't know what Terry Fontenot and what Arthur Smith at this point are thinking. I do think that they like Desmond Ritter a lot. But in regards to this Lamar Jackson situation, personally, I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I don't think that it would be a good move for the Falcons to bring in Lamar Jackson, because I thought that it would take up too much of our cap. And I think at the same time, it would have took too many draft picks. But now that it's down to, I guess, 2 number 1 or 2 first round picks because they signed that non-exclusive tag, or they placed that tag on him, I still think that it possibly will cost too much money to try to get Lamar signed. One of my issues with this whole Lamar Jackson situation is I put the blame on the Baltimore Ravens. There should be no reason why Lamar Jackson wasn't signed after he won the MVP. To be honest, the earlier you sign players, the better. You don't want to let a player get through his whole deal, basically his whole rookie deal, before you bring him in and sign him. Personally, if I'm Lamar Jackson, and I don't like talking about people's money, but if I were Lamar Jackson, basically I would just want to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, the highest guaranteed money, the highest paid player. Now, as far as the guaranteed money goes, because Deshaun Watson got that crazy deal, I don't know if he's going to be able to eclipse that $230 million guaranteed, because that's a crazy astronomical amount of money. But I would want to be the highest paid. So out of the guys that recently were paid, the Kyler Murrays, Aaron Rodgers, all of the guys that recently signed deals, I would want to be the highest paid player. That's usually how it works in the NFL, especially if you're a good player or you're a top 5 quarterback, which I consider Lamar Jackson a top 5 quarterback. If I'm him, I would want to reset the market. Usually that's how it works. When you get paid, it's not about being the best player. It's about being one of the top at your position. And if you're one of the top at your position, you're going to get paid. You've seen Christian Kirk as a wide receiver leave the Cardinals and get paid last year by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and was made like one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. And that's currently where currently what I feel about Lamar Jackson situation is that the Ravens shouldn't have let it get to this point where he's not signed, and now he's went through his 5th-year option, and now he's demanding, all of this guaranteed money. I put the blame on them, because as an organization, you shouldn't allow your star quarterback like I said, to get through his full contract without actually already giving him a contract. So at this point, I do eventually think that he will be signed by somebody. I don't know if it'll be the Ravens, but I understand why the Falcons didn't want to do a deal with Lamar Jackson. To me, it has nothing to do with Lamar Jackson's skill set. Personally, I think Lamar Jackson can throw the ball. I think that he can run the ball. I think like I said, he's a top 5 quarterback in the game right now. But I wish I knew the numbers of what kind of money he's asking for. Because if he's asking for over $230 million guaranteed, then that could be a reason why he doesn't have a contract. Because based upon the salary cap, and we know we just got out of salary cap hell from bad deals that we made, guys like we signed and then cut. That's the reason why the Ravens are reluctant to do a Deshaun Watson type deal, because it's going to eat up a lot of your cap, and you won't have the space to bring in complementary pieces to build around Lamar Jackson. So I really think that that's the issue. I don't think it's because of his skill set. I don't think it has anything to do with any of that. I really think it just has to do with, can we build a team? And that's what I kept going back to with all of the Atlanta Falcons fans that were questioning me about Lamar Jackson, is can you build a winning organization around Lamar Jackson if you pay him $200+ million guaranteed? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it'll be tough to do it. And with that being said, and that's pretty much probably the last time we're gonna need to address Lamar Jackson until he's signed by somebody, because the Falcons kind of put the nail in the coffin about we're not signing him. So I'm glad that we kind of got that over with. So we're not kind of lingering with the media can keep saying that the Falcons are one of the teams that is, want Lamar Jackson or possibly going to sign Lamar Jackson. But until he gets signed at this point, I don't see a reason for us to, talk about him at this point. I just feel like the Ravens just need to get a deal done. The guy has won an MVP. The guy's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. The guy deserves another contract. It might not be what he wants, but they're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, because I don't think he's going to get a guaranteed contract if that's what he's looking for. And with that being said, I know I done probably missed a whole bunch of comments. So let me go and take a look at the comments here. And we're going to jump into the next topic, since we talked about Lamar Jackson, because they kind of tie in hand. And I basically just want to talk about the Falcons are looking to build a complete team. Like, it goes back to what I was just saying about Lamar Jackson. Can you build a complete team and have depth and be similar to what you've seen last year with the Philadelphia Eagles if you sign a guy to $200+ million guaranteed? Personally, I don't think it's possible. And it would be really, really hard to pay somebody that much money where they're going to eat up 40% of your cap or majority of your cap space for you to be able to sign other guys. So personally, I think the reason the Falcons are not going after Lamar Jackson is because I keep saying in every live show, when Mike and K-Styles and all of the guys be live, I always put in the chat, the Falcons are looking to build a complete team. So you're not going to be able to pay one man all of this money. Really, I think that the Atlanta Falcons at this point are doing it the correct way. They're trying to build around Desmond Ridder. They're trying to build through the draft, and that's the way that you go about winning Super Bowls. If you want to be a team that has a sustained, winning over years and years and years, you have to build through the draft. Well, so far, so this organization so far with this new regime, Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith, personally, I think that they've done a great job at drafting guys. If you just look at last season's draft, you had Drake London, who led the team in receptions and receiving yards, which was a rookie. So that means you drafted well. Running back Tyler Algier, who didn't start the season as the starter, led the team in rushing, and also broke the rookie record as far as Atlanta Falcons in rushing yardage. So that just goes to show you that this team, this regime, they're doing a good job of drafting and developing talent. You've seen Desmond Ridder sit out most of the season due to Marcus Mariota kind of sitting behind him, learning the ropes. And then when he finally got into the game, we seen him progress each and every game. In that 4-game sample size, we've seen in every single game, his QBR went up. If you just watch the games, he looked more comfortable out there. He did a good job of leading the offense down the field. against the Cardinals in that last game, against the Buccaneers. He played really well in those games, even in the first game against New Orleans and against the Baltimore Ravens. We pretty much were in every single game. So I think that the Falcons are doing it the correct way by trying to build a complete team and trying to build through the draft. If you look at the teams that have won Super Bowls, majority of those teams won Super Bowls with their quarterback under their rookie contract. So I feel like right now the Falcons are kind of in a sweet spot when it comes to Desmond Ridder. And because he's on a rookie deal, and I think he was like a 3rd round pick, this is similar to what the Seahawks did with Russell Wilson. They were able to bring him in. I think he got drafted somewhere in like the 2nd or 3rd round. He ended up, winning the starting job over Matt Flynn. And then they were able to pour in the money to those other positions. You had Marshawn Lynch. You had the Legion of Boom. And pretty much they drafted all those guys, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas. And they were able to win a Super Bowl. If you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did last season with Jalen Hurts, you have a guy who was in his 2nd year but still under his rookie contract. They were able to go in and bring in an A.J. Brown. They were able to, go out and get Javon Hargraves, went out and got, numerous, Darius Slay, all of the guys that they had, James Bradbury. They were able to go out and pretty much pour all of that money into that team to bring in free agents, to bring in veterans, to complement the team because they had a quarterback under a rookie deal. So personally, I think as a GM, if I were a GM of the Falcons or a GM in the NFL, I really think that the Falcons had a correct blueprint of trying to win a Super Bowl because we just got out of salary cap hell. You really don't want to bring in a Lamar Jackson or bring in somebody that's going to take up most of the cap, especially with all of the holes that we have currently on our team. You still have holes on the defense. You still have holes on the offense, like on the offensive line. You're trying to re-sign Chris Lindstrom. You're trying to re-sign possibly a Caleb McGarry or go out and sign a veteran right tackle. You still have to bring in another wide receiver to complement Drake London possibly. So if you go out and get a Lamar Jackson, you're not going to have the money to do those things. And I think if you look at the teams that are successful, it's the teams that build through the draft successfully, and it's teams that have depth. And that's what the Falcons teams have lacked over the last, I'll say, 5 years that we've missed the playoffs. We've lacked depth. We've lacked the pass rushers and things of that nature. And we've lacked defense. So we got to correct that by going into this draft, building the team the correct way. You're not going to do that with paying one guy, over 50% or 40% of your salary. So I think the Falcons are going about it the correct way. And if you go look at, like I said, the history of the NFL, if you go look at the last 15 years, the teams that consistently win are teams that either had a quarterback that was a veteran that was taking pay cuts, similar to a Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots and with the Buccaneers, where he wasn't taking top dollar, or it's guys, guys that were on rookie contracts. So, and if you go do your research, you'll see that most teams that pay somebody that top money, similar to what we've seen with the Broncos last year, paying Russell Wilson. You've seen last year that really didn't work out for them too well, with them paying him all of that money and getting rid of all of those draft picks. They struggled in their first season. So with that being said, I want to jump back into the chat and get you guys questions, because I know I've been rambling for a little bit. So let's see here. Andrew G says, what does a Nielsen defense look like compared to Pease? Similar or completely different? No, I think that their defenses are actually similar. Nielsen is a very aggressive, defensive-minded coach. He's a younger defensive mind. Of course, he's a lot younger than Dean Pease. So I think that he might be a little bit more creative than a Dean Pease. But Dean Pease was also a very good defensive coordinator. So that's no slight to Dean Pease. But I think with Nielsen, what you should expect is a very aggressive defense. He's going to be a guy that's going to try to blitz a lot, especially the linebackers and stuff like that. He likes blitzing corners off the edge and stuff like that, and safeties off the edge. But if you look at that New Orleans defense over the last, I'll say 2 to 3 years, they were really aggressive. And that's what you should expect from a Nielsen's defense. So Dean Pease and Nielsen are both similar in their philosophies as far as being aggressive. So I really think that that's what you should expect. I don't think it'll be completely different. And I think that's the reason why you brought back a Lorenzo Carter, because the scheme that we're going to be running is going to be really, really similar. It's just possibly going to be a few new wrinkles, because everybody, even if you're running the same exact scheme like a West Coast offense or any type of defense you're running, a cover three, you can add wrinkles into defense. So I feel like it'll be a couple small wrinkles that might change. But other than that, and maybe some of the verbiage and stuff like that they use might be a little bit different. But other than that, I don't think that it's going to be like a 360, like it's a totally different defense. I really think that the defense is going to be similar. And Eric Mack says, "What it do, Ju? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well." And let's see. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And you guys can also go ahead and start dropping your questions as well in the chat if you guys got some questions for me. And AJ Evans says, "We don't damn know." Reporters say whatever. Exactly. Well, that's something that we always say. We don't know neither, because to be honest, when it comes to the quarterback situation, I really don't know where the Falcons are leaning. Yeah, I think that they like Desmond Ridder a lot, but maybe one of these quarterbacks in the draft caught their eye. We really don't know. They're saying one thing, but that could be a smokescreen. I really think that they do like Desmond Ridder, but depending on how the draft board falls and depending on what players, they value in the draft, we don't know, because it was a lot of guys. It's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, the kid from Alabama, which I think will probably be the top guy off the board, but you never know. Bryce Young may drop in the draft. We don't know how those teams above us feel about him, and we really don't know how Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot feel about these guys, because Desmond Ridder being drafted in the third round, to me, told me a lot about what they felt about drafting him. If you really felt like he was a franchise quarterback, you would have drafted in the first round. That's why I always talk about value. So that's no shot at Desmond Ridder. I think Desmond Ridder could be the starter. And he's, like I said, he showed me enough where I would give him a shot, but you never know. Maybe they want to go out and get one of these other guys that they've seen in the draft so far. Big Ant, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining tonight as well. And that's one of my bros from AFN. So shouts out to Big Ant. I appreciate you joining me, man. And what's going on, Noah the Professor? He says, "I'm glad you mentioned that, Jew. Nobody was talking about how dumb the Ravens have been. Talking to Lamar for over 2 years and still can't get a deal done." Yeah, it's sad, man. Like, I don't want to hear that this man ain't worth the money. He's worth every penny. Like, pay this man his money. I know you may not want to give him $230 billion guaranteed or $250 million guaranteed. I wouldn't do nothing foolish like that, but I would make him the highest paid quarterback, most recent paid quarterback. Like, out of the guys that recently got their money, he's better than Kyler Murray. He's better than any of them quarterbacks you want to name. Lamar Jackson is better than them that recently got a contract. So, and he's done, more. If you look at Lamar Jackson's record, he's like 47 and like 17 or something crazy. He wins 75% of his games. So if you want to say it's about winning, this dude is a winner. Like, I understand the injuries, but 100% of players in the NFL get injured. Injuries are part of the game. You're going to get injured. That goes to show for any player in the NFL. You're going to get nicked up at times. So to me, that's excuse not to pay the man to say that he gets injured, because that can happen to anybody. So at this point, if you look at Kyler Murray, he's a prime example of he got paid and he got injured. He's been injured the last 2 years as well. So I'm not taking that as an excuse for the Ravens not to pay him, that he gets injured, he's injury prone. Now, again, I'm not saying that they need to pay him $250 million guaranteed neither. I think he got to meet in the middle somewhere. And let's see. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. Let's see here. And what's going on, Isaac? He says Nielsen likes bigger defensive ends. He does. And I think that that's something that we're going to see in the draft. I think you're going to see possibly The kid Wilson, I'm a huge fan of the kid out of Texas Tech. I think that he could be the first guy that we draft. To be honest with you, it's either going to be Miles Murphy or Wilson, the kid from Texas Tech, because he's like 6'6" or 6'5", super long arms, and to me, he's my favorite defensive end or edge rusher in this draft. But he definitely does love bigger defensive linemen, so you can expect this defensive line to get a lot bigger. And you can just look at the New Orleans Saints. Guys like Marcus Davenport, he's like 6'6". Guys like Cam Jordan, 6'4". He like guys that are big. Onyemata, their defensive tackle in New Orleans, he's like 6'5" as well. So we can expect this defensive line to get a lot bigger. And I think that that'll help us, especially in stopping the run. With all these smaller defensive tackles that we've had over the years, other than Grady Jarrett, but having guys like Tyler Davison, Marlon Davison, we didn't really have the girth and the big guys that we needed on the inside of the defensive line. And I think that that's going to change. We're going to see that next week. When free agency opens, expect the Falcons to sign either a couple defensive tackles or at least one defensive tackle to pair up with Grady Jarrett. So I'm definitely looking forward to the defensive line getting bigger on the defensive line and getting a little bit better at stopping the run, because that's been our Achilles heel. And Dave says Judah defense will be a base 4-3 with hybrid principles. Players like Malone will be asked to be designated pass rushers. Epicadi will be asked to add about 10 pounds. I don't know if they're going to make these guys get bigger, but I do expect us to have some hybrid, 4-3, 3-4, which we did that last year. So I really don't feel like it's going to be a lot of difference. But I agree with you, Dave. I definitely think that we're going to be, a hybrid defense still. That's why I say I don't really expect a lot of changes. The main changes I think we're going to see is bigger defensive linemen being added, as far as bigger defensive tackles, bigger defensive ends, and then I think we're going to see more aggression. So like a lot of blitzing, more blitzing than we've seen the last couple of years. So we're going to take a lot of chances, and you're going to see a lot more man-to-man coverage. It's not going to be as much zone like the last couple of years, because we had younger defensive backs and we didn't have money to go out and pay the cream of the crop as far as guys to be able to cover man-to-man. I think they're going to draft or sign like a veteran cover guy. So whether it's like a Patrick Peterson or, one of those guys that can cover man-to-man in the draft. I talked about Brian Branch out of Alabama. He's a guy that can play like corner / safety. He's like a hybrid cover type DB. You could see a Brian Branch or somebody like that in the draft that can cover and can pretty much do it all, but can definitely match up man-to-man. Because when you're bringing pressure, at times you're going to have to play a lot of man-to-man defense. And if you look at the Saints, they play a lot of man-to-man coverage. So I expect a lot more man-to-man coverage than we've seen over the last couple of years. Let's see. Let's see here. So AJ Evans says, I get in, but assuming McGarry goes, don't be surprised if they draft Broderick Jones or one of the top tackles. And that's a great comment. I definitely think that Broderick Jones could be a guy that the Falcons look at, or they might go offensive line in the first round. As much as I kept saying I really don't want the Falcons to draft offense at all in the first round, I want a defensive lineman with that first pick at 8. If somehow, some way, Caleb McGarry gets like a huge contract from somebody in free agency and we're not able to bring him back on a team-friendly deal, you could see the Falcons draft an offensive lineman in the first round. And personally, that's what I would do. Like, if the Falcons are not able to bring back Caleb McGarry, within the first 2 rounds, I'm taking a right tackle. Like, I'm not messing around. I know we got Jalen Mayfield, but I'm not risking the season on or banking on Jalen Mayfield to be the starter. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe they know something that we don't know because we didn't see Caleb McGarry all last season, and maybe they were working with him. But I'm not risking the season on Jalen Mayfield. I mean, the dude was playing guard and then Now they're trying to move him back possibly to his regular position, which was right tackle. I do believe in the the offensive line coach that we have, but I would go out and bring in a premier right tackle. If we're not keeping Caleb McGarry, then I'm going to get a tackle. And if we do decide to let Mayfield possibly be the starter, he's going to have to compete for the position. I'm not just going to give it to him. I definitely will have him compete with a top level right tackle, because one thing we can't risk is going into the season just hoping and praying that Mayfield is going to get the job done, or hoping and praying that we're going to just figure it out. Like, I feel like Caleb McGarry and Lindstrom, those two guys together as a tandem, kind of has grown together, gotten a lot better in that camaraderie and stuff like that. They understand each other, and you can't really teach those reps. All those reps that those guys have built, that rapport that they built with each other, that's not something that you can kind of just gain overnight. So I think it's going to be crucial if the Falcons can't bring McGarry back, either bring in a veteran right tackle to compete with Mayfield, or draft a top right tackle. You can't play around with offensive line. When I say the trenches, that's both offense and defense. You have to be solid in the trenches to consistently win. So if we can't bring them back, that's what I would do. Let's see here. And give me a second, guys. We got a lot of questions in the chat here. But shouts out to my boy Juan. What's going on? The Falcons therapist in the building. I appreciate you, man, for joining me tonight. I hope all is well with you. And he says, do you think we will really get Jesse Bates? That's a good question. To be honest, I don't know. I think we will get Jesse Bates, but it depends on if another team outbids us for him. It depends on if he really likes, this Falcons organization, if he likes the coaching staff, because a lot of the times it comes down to money, and then it comes down to scheme. So if he feels like we have the best scheme, like as far as what he wants to do in Jesse Bates, if he feels like this scheme is going to fit him perfectly, then he could sign with us, even if another team offers him more money. But it's really going to come down to how much money he's looking for. And if another team like the Cleveland Browns is a team that's kind of been rumored that want Jesse Bates. There's a couple teams out there that's been rumored that kind of want Jesse Bates. So I'm not pressed, to be honest. I think the Falcons, we would love to have a Jesse Bates on our team, but I don't think it's like a must. Like, we have to go out and get a Jesse Bates. I really feel like the defensive line, we have to sign a veteran defensive tackle or a defensive end, like an edge rusher. I think that's more important than a Jesse Bates. But I wouldn't mind having Jesse Bates on the team. Like, he would be icing on the cake. So I definitely think that he's a guy that, is a really good safety, a ball hawk type dude. For Cincinnati, he played really well the last couple of years and deserves to get paid. But it depends on how much money he's asking for. Similar to like the Lamar Jackson situation. It's going to come down to how much money he wants. And then on his end, it's going to come down to, does he think that this Falcons team will fit the scheme? Like, will he fit in our scheme? Let's see. And Sonia House says, Skip and Shannon said that Lamar would be great for our Falcons, but they never said that he makes us an instant playoff team. But they said Rodgers instantly makes the Jets one. If we got Lamar Jackson, with the way that our division is looking, I think we would be a playoff team, to be honest with you guys. Even if we had like literally no money and we only able to sign a couple guys in just our draft class, with the way that this NFC South is currently looking, it's wide open. Like, with Tom Brady retiring, the division already last year was a mess. But going into this season, you really don't have a team that's like head and shoulders above the rest. A lot of people are talking about the Saints because they got Derek Carr. But personally, I think that Derek Carr is just like an average quarterback. Like, he's not bad. He's not great. He's just average. And the Saints, to me, I don't really like Dennis Allen as a head coach, to be honest with you guys. They former defensive coordinator. To me, he didn't really do that good of a job last year as the head coach. I really think that they need another head coach in New Orleans. So they may be the most talented team as far as they still have veterans, like Lattimore, and they still have, all the guys they've had over the years, the Mario Davis. They're the most experienced team, but I really think that the Falcons probably had the most young talent. Like, to me, I think we're the team that's kind of ascending. Carolina was actually ascending last year as well, later on in the season, when they went and changed their head coach to the interim coach that they had. But personally, I really think if Lamar Jackson was on the Falcons, he would instantly make this Falcons team a playoff contender, especially in the NFC South, because right now the South is really bad. Like, we don't really have we have to wait until after the draft. I'm just speaking on current terms. We really there's really not a lot of talent in the NFC South right now. Other than the Falcons, we have a lot of young teams and a lot of unproven quarterbacks and things of that nature. So, and a lot of new coaching staff. So, with that being said, I really think that Lamar Jackson would make us an instant playoff team. But at the end of the day, it's all what they say on TV is about narratives. Aaron Rodgers, they've been saying Aaron Rodgers, is going to get to the Super Bowls since he won his last Super Bowl. And we see how, how far that narrative has gotten him. He hasn't been back to a Super Bowl since they won, over a decade ago. So it just goes to show how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl, how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. So I definitely think that the Falcons would be a contender with Lamar Jackson. And Eric Mack says, I don't know, Jew. Mayfield looks good at right tackle. He might be all right at right tackle. We will have to see. Personally, I'm not risking it. If we lose Caleb McGarry, I'm not going into the season just hoping that that Mayfield is the answer. I'm drafting a guy to compete with him, and I'm bringing in a veteran to compete with him. One of the two. I'm not going into the this season with him as the starter. Let's see. And AJ Evans says Shy Tuttle. Yeah, Shy Tuttle was the defensive tackle from New Orleans as well. I think he could be a guy that's on the Falcons' radar. He wouldn't be a splash signing. Like, if we signed him, nobody would probably say much about it. But he knows the Saints' Ryan Nielsen scheme, and he's just a big run stuffer, and that's what you need. So if you were to sign a Shy Tuttle, I think you can get him on a reasonable deal, and he's a big body. So as I keep talking about depth, could be a guy that you see the Falcons sign. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed a Shy Tuttle. And Eric Mack, he ain't gonna let it go. He says Mayfield is more athletic than McGarry. He probably is more athletic, but the NFL is more. It's not just about being athletic; it's about technique. And that's what we've seen even with Caleb McGarry. Early on, Caleb McGarry still sometimes Caleb McGarry gets too high, and we all know in football the low man wins. And sometimes we see Caleb McGarry even struggle with his technique. So that's what scares me about Mayfield. It's not that I don't think Mayfield's a good player. It's just last time I seen him playing, yes, he was playing out of position. He was playing tackle. He was playing guard instead of tackle. But it still makes me a little bit nervous. So personally, I don't trust him. Until he shows me something, I don't trust him. It was the same thing I said about Caleb McGarry. It was the same thing I said about Isaiah Oliver when those guys weren't playing well. Show me something. Like, you got to show me. I'm not going to just have faith in you that you're going to ball out. Like, you got to give me something to believe in. And last year, we didn't see Mayfield at all. So I'm not going to just blind believe that he's the answer. He's going to have to come in and show me. And y'all heard my boy Bad Bike. He said, all right, peeps, hit that like button. Only 4 people have liked so far. Yeah, I appreciate it. Y'all check the likes for me. I got my wife in the back. Y'all check the likes for me. Y'all hit that like button for your boy. The likes is free. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And we got 49 chats. So I appreciate if you guys would also share this content out. And I hope you guys are enjoying the show. And we're winding down probably like another 15 minutes, and then we'll jump off. So if you guys got questions, go ahead and flood the chat with questions. I see some questions still here, and it can be about anything. It could be about free agency, it could be about the draft. I have had a chance to look over a couple prospects from last week. I just hadn't had the time yet to drop the videos because there's been some Atlanta Falcons news happening. But I will be dropping a video on Jack Campbell, which was one of the guys that I was told to look at as far as the linebackers from Iowa. I still haven't dropped my Christian Gonzalez video, so I'll be dropping my Christian Gonzalez video from Oregon, the corner. But it's a couple guys that I want to be dropping those quick prospect videos on. So stay tuned to the channel for those prospect videos. And let's see. Dave says, Drew, the national media looks at the Falcons as a gimmick organization. They don't take the Falcons seriously. Do you really think if Pat Mahomes was available, he would be linked to the Falcons or Atlanta? Yes, I definitely think he would. I mean, if you guys look on Twitter, Facebook, any of the social media outlets, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, pretty much every quarterback that's been let go by their team, they're saying that they will be a good fit with the Falcons for some reason. Sam Darnold, any quarterback you can name that's been released, Ryan Tannehill, pretty much every quarterback has been linked to the Falcons in some way based upon the media. So that's why you can't listen to the mainstream media. Like, to be honest with you guys, the underground media, myself, all of the Atlanta Falcons content creators, to me, we put out better content when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons and give you guys the real content, what's really going to possibly happen. And that's the reason why Mike, myself, K-Styles, we always say, the AFN crew, that we're going to give you guys the stats, the facts, and the truth. Like, we don't give you guys in sugarcoat, and give you guys these, false hope. We give you guys the truth. So I really think that any quarterback that's out there, they're going to link them to the Falcons. And I really think that was the reason the Falcons came out and basically ended all of that. We're looking at Lamar Jackson, because that was pretty much everything before he got tagged. Everybody was saying that the Falcons were a top candidate, and we were looking at Lamar Jackson and talking to him, talking to the Ravens at the combine and all of that. So we put that to bed. But shouts out to Dave for the super sticker, for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate that, Dave. It all goes to help, grow the channel and support the channel. So I really appreciate the super chat. And I do think that this is a great question right here by JBM93. He says, what do you think we should do? Wide receiver 2, also center. That's a good question. Wide receiver 2, it's a couple of veterans out there that I would take a look at. Last week I talked about Allen Lazard. I think he's going to want a big contract from Green Bay. But if you add him to this team, this Falcons team would get scary, because we talked about having the Twin Towers, London and Pitts. Both of those guys standing about 6'5", 6'6", and Allen Lazard for the Green Bay Packers, who's now a free agent. He's about 6'5", but he's a guy that runs like a 4.3, 4.4. So he's a really fast, deep threat, big wide receiver, physical, can block and things of that nature. And I think he could fit this team perfect. But it's a couple veterans out there that as well. I talked about Robert Woods last week, the former Ram and Tennessee Titans wide receiver. Mecole Hardman is another guy that is out there, former Kansas City Chief, who's a guy that can take the top off. He's not a guy that's a big physical wide receiver, but he's a guy who can stretch the defense and stuff like that. So he could be a complement to like a bigger Drake London and Kyle Pitts. But I definitely think it'll be interesting. Odell Beckham is another guy that's out there. I don't think he'll be on the Falcons' radar, because I think that he is possibly going to want too much money, and he's a big personality, and I don't think that they want to bring like a personality like Odell into this young locker room. But I think he could fit in this Falcons scheme, like as a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. He's a threat. But you could also see the Falcons go out and draft a guy, which I think that they're going to draft at least one wide receiver that can possibly be the wide receiver 2. But if it was up to me personally, I would try to go get a veteran, a wide receiver 2, maybe somebody that's like a route runner. So like a Robert Woods, he's a route runner. Another name that's kind of been under the radar that recently they say that he may be a free agent as well, or he's getting released by the Rams, is Allen Robinson. He's a guy, when he played with Chicago and with the Jaguars, he was really, really good. He's more of like a possession receiver. He's not a really fast wide receiver, but he's a physical, like I think he's like 6'2", but he's a guy who can run all of the routes on the route tree. And he was a number one wide receiver for Chicago, but he didn't have a good season with the Rams last year. So they're releasing him. So he would be a guy that I would have my eye on as well if I were the Falcons, because he has something to prove and he's a really good wide receiver as far as catching contested catches and stuff like that. Allen Robinson is a guy that I think went under the radar last year, but he still has, I think, some gas in the tank. As far as center, the center position, I think that it's going to be Drew Dalman again. To be honest, I know a lot of people want us to go out and get a veteran or possibly draft a center, but with you having Hennessy on the roster and still having Drew Dalman on the roster, I think they're going to give Drew Dalman another shot. And if he doesn't pan out, maybe they throw Hennessy in there as well. But I don't think they're going to spend capital on a center. I really don't think they're going to do it. I really think that because they drafted Drew Dalman, they believe in him and they're going to try to develop him. And I don't really blame them. I feel like you can't always go out and just sign guys. You got to give these young guys a chance to develop. And Drew Dalman didn't play terrible last year. I mean, I seen improvement throughout the season. Yeah, he had a couple low snaps and stuff like that. And that sometimes he got bull rushed and got ran over. But I think you give him a season. Last year was his first season starting. But if you give him another full season under his belt, a full off season where he can get stronger, get in the weight room and stuff like that, I think that he'll be okay. So I wouldn't necessarily just move on from a guy like Drew Dalman. And like I said, Matt Hennessy, when he got in the game at that guard position, he played really well as well. So I wouldn't put it past either one of those two guys. And AJ Evans says, is Darnell Washington worth our second round pick? The tight end showed out at the combine. And this is a guy that I did a breakdown on as well as one of my prospect videos. I love Darnell Washington. Big, physical, 6'7", 200, and I think he's like 65 pounds. He's a big dude. So he's like another offensive lineman. And I definitely think he's worth a second round pick. Personally, I don't know if he's even going to be around in the second round because I could see a team taking him in the first round. I don't think he's going to be early in the first round, but I can see one of those teams like in the bottom half of the first round, maybe somewhere in the 20s or the teens. I can see somebody, jumping up and taking the Darnell Washington. But if he's there in the second round, if I were the Falcons, because Arthur Smith likes to run those heavy sets with 2 and 3 tight ends, I would definitely look at taking Darnell Washington because he's a guy that's just a freak athlete. You pair him with Kyle Pitts on those double tight end sets, Parker Hesse, who we still have on this roster, Fitzpatrick, who a lot of people are forgetting about, that we drafted last year out of Georgia. I definitely think that Darnell Washington is definitely worth a second round pick. To be honest, he's worth a first round pick, to be honest with you guys. But I don't know if he'll be there for the Falcons. But if he is, I hope the Falcons get a chance to possibly take him. And let's see, scroll down some. And Eric Mack says the trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars for Calvin Ridley was a 5th round pick. And if Jacksonville signs Ridley, we get their 2nd round pick. Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely another extra draft pick that could go to help this roster, us continue to build our roster. And I hope that Calvin Ridley balls out. I mean, I've seen some clips of him on social media working out and stuff like that at the beach. And we know that Calvin Ridley is one of the best route runners in the game. With Calvin Ridley was mainly mental. So I'm glad to see that he's back mentally healthy and stuff like that. And, he's found his love for football again. Of course, he had to sit out last year due to the gambling situation. So I hope he plays well, and I hope he gets signed by Jacksonville to get us more capital. But I definitely think that, that was huge for us to get those draft picks. And let's see. And Ghost Pepper says plenty of options at wide receiver in this class who bring similar traits and would be a smarter investment than Allen Robinson. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. I don't have the list of guys in front of me, like as far as free agents, but I definitely think that that Allen Robinson he's a beast. Allen Robinson's a beast, but it's a lot of guys that are in free agency that's not right off the top of my head. I just named the guys off the top of my head, but I definitely think that there's some other guys that the Falcons could look at possibly bringing in. And it's a lot of wide receiver talent in this draft as well. So I wouldn't sleep on the talent in the draft. I mean, if you look at it nowadays, these wide receivers are coming out first year hitting the ground running, 1,000 yards receiving, all pros. Like we seen last year, Garrett Wilson win Rookie of the Year. We seen Drake London. If he would have had Desmond Ridder throwing him the ball the whole season, he probably would have had over 1,000 yards receiving as well. So, I mean, you're seeing it year in and year out with these skill position players, whether it's running backs, whether it's wide receivers. These guys are coming in, day one and balling out. So, I definitely agree. And Ghostifer says, Jew, one player you don't want in the first, I wouldn't want Anthony Richardson at 8. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think the Falcons are going to take Anthony Richardson unless they really like him. Like if they really fell in love with Anthony Richardson, I feel like they would take him. I wouldn't put anything past. After we went after Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't put anything past this coaching staff or put anything past these scouts or Terry Fontenot. Like I keep telling you guys, we don't know. I wouldn't want them a quarterback at 8, but we don't know what they're thinking. Personally, it could all be a smokescreen. Like if they did want Anthony Richardson, they're not going to tell us that because they don't want any team to trade up in front of us to take them, and they don't want any of the other teams that do have, in the top 7 picks. They don't want them to take Anthony Richardson if he's a guy that they really want. So we really don't know. Personally, I don't think that they're taking him at 8, but who knows? Because he did go to the combine and really put on the show. Now, personally, if you ask me, I believe in looking at the players' tape, looking at what they did in college and watching the games and stuff like that to make my assumption or make my analysis on should you draft a player or not. I wouldn't just base it off of combine numbers because we've seen guys go to the combine and kill it, run fast, jump high, do all of the things, throw the football really far, but then they couldn't play, they didn't play well when the games actually started. So I wouldn't just look at, what Anthony Richardson did in the combine and base my decision on that. But one thing I will say about Anthony Richardson is he's a guy similar to like a Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson. He says he's a mix of both. He's a freak athlete. So if he put it all together, he could be a really good player in the NFL, believe it or not. Now, I think that's going to take him some years to develop. Like, I don't think he's ready now to be a starter in the NFL, but I do think he has all of the skills if he gets with the right head coach, right offensive coordinator, and maybe sits for a year or two. I think he could be a really good quarterback because he has the skills to possibly do it. And let's see. And Nathan Floyd says at wide receiver, I wouldn't mind Jacoby Myers, DJ Chark, or Paris Campbell. All of those guys are solid wide receivers. Jacoby Myers was actually a quarterback in college and then played well at the wide receiver position with the Patriots. So he's a guy that's like a do-it-all Swiss Army knife type wide receiver. So I definitely could see him with the Falcons. DJ Chark, I really like a lot. He played with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year, but he started his career with Jacksonville. And he's really good. He's another guy that's like 6'5". I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", but he's really tall as well. And he's like a probably a cheaper version of an Allen Lazard, but he played really well with Detroit last year. So DJ Chark would also be a good complement to Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and then Paris Campbell. I think he's more of a speed wide receiver, kind of like a similar to Mecole Hardman. So I think all three of those guys could be solid wide receiver twos. If I had to choose between one of those three, I'm taking DJ Chark personally. Let's see. Isaac Crime says Tyree Wilson said that he would take the defense to another level if we draft him. Tyree Wilson is my favorite edge in this draft. Him and Myles Murphy. But if I had to choose between Myles Murphy or Tyree Wilson, I would probably take Tyree Wilson because of his size and athleticism. I think he's a guy that really hasn't like reached his full potential. And I always talk about when guys are long, big, 6'5", you can't teach size. Like I always talk about, you cannot teach size. Like guys that have those long arms and are freak athletes, you can't teach that. Like you either tall or you're not. You either got long arms or you don't. And I feel like Tyree Wilson is one of those guys that if the Falcons take him, and because I believe in Brian Nielsen and his ability to develop young talent, as far as, I seen what he did with guys like Trey Hendrickson that now plays with the Bengals. But when he was in New Orleans, he was one of those guys that worked with Ryan Nielsen. I really think that Tyree Wilson he's a raw talent, but he's a guy that I think because of his size and athleticism, his strength and stuff like that, he's just a freak athlete. And I don't think you can teach that. You can teach guys, pass rush moves. You can't teach somebody to be 6'5". You can't teach somebody to have long arms. So I definitely think that Tyree Wilson would be a guy that the Falcons should have on their radar. And Mike says Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith won't tell us anything. I have no idea what they are thinking. I'm 80% sure it'll be defense, 15% offense, including quarterback. Yeah, that's why I keep saying we don't know. Like that was our favorite saying. Like K Styles always says, we don't know. Like we really don't. We can tell you guys what we think, but I didn't think the Falcons would move off of Matt Ryan when they did, but they did. So, I didn't think the Falcons would go after Deshaun Watson, after dealing with Michael Vick and all of the stuff that happened with him, just around him going to jail and stuff like that. I really thought that they wouldn't talk to Deshaun Watson or even put their hat, in the ring and even be in rumors of possibly signing him. But then again, they did it. So to be honest, I think that everybody always says like we're insiders and we know information, but I really don't think nobody knows. I think that the Falcons are playing it close to the vest, and that's what you should do. If you have, draft picks, why go out and say, we like this player, we like that player, we're going to take this player. You just basically going to show, the opposing teams your hand. So I wouldn't do that either. And Sonia Howell says, how would you improve the special teams unit? I really think we got one of the best special teams units in the NFL. And I think that's because we got guys that are versatile. It goes back to kind of what I stated early on in the show, talking about Lorenzo Carter being a guy that plays special teams, having guys like Troy Anderson, having guys like Cordell Patterson, who returned a touchdown in that Chicago Bears game, which set the record for the most kickoff returns for touchdowns. Younghoe Koo, like we have one of the better special teams units. Like I think we have a top 5 special teams unit in the NFL. So as far as improving it, the only thing I can think of that we can possibly do to improve is possibly bring in like another guy that can return punts and stuff like that. And maybe that's the only way we can do that. Probably like add somebody other than Avery Williams and Cordero. So another guy that's like explosive and making returns. So if you were to sign like a Mecole Hardman, he's a guy who can return punts and stuff like that. Maybe that's how you can improve. But from what I understand, I think Avery Williams like led the NFL like with the most yardage as far as on average on punt return. So we'll already have like one of the better special teams units. Younghoe Koo is a top 3, say top 5, top 3, field goal kicker in the NFL right now. So I really don't feel like our special teams unit is, needs much help improving. I really think that they're one of the better units in the NFL. And Big Ant says Tyree Wilson has the potential to be a monster in this defense. Yeah, I definitely think like Tyree Wilson, one thing that I like about Tyree Wilson, and I did mention a minute ago, is just his ability, not only because he's, he has the size and the strength and athleticism, but he's also a guy that plays the run really well. And I feel like whatever guy you bring in on the defensive line, sometimes I think what goes overlooked when you talk about defensive ends and edge rushers, we only focus on, can this guy get 10 sacks in a season or double-digit sacks? We never look at, well, how well does he play the run? Is he disruptive in the run game? Does he get tackles for loss in the backfield in the run game? Because to me, that factors into also being able to rush the passer. And that was something that I've been stating since last season, pretty much on every show when we did the heavy hitter shows. and we talked about keys to victory. Every week I talked about pretty much you got to be better on first and second down. That's something that Dean Pease kept preaching, kept harping on in every interview, press conference. Every week he was saying, we got to be better on first and second down. We got to get out of third and short. We can't allow teams to be 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and inches, 3rd and 3. It's too easy to convert those type of situations. So you got to be better on first and second down of creating negative plays. And I think that that's something that Tyree Wilson would bring to the table, is he's a guy that'll hit the running back in the backfield on a running play on first or second down and a loss of 2 or 10 instead of 2nd and 5. Because this past season, running back getting like 5-6 yards a clip, especially in that game when we played Carolina on Thursday night. They pretty much ran the ball up and down the field on us. So I definitely think that that's something that with Tyree Wilson that I really like, is he's physical and he's going to focus on stopping the run before anything, and then, rush the passer after stopping the run. But with that being said, you guys, I'm going to get ready to wrap things up tonight. I may take like 1 or 2 more questions if you guys have one more question here. But after that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you guys your night back. But I appreciate you guys joining me as always. If you didn't hit that like button, or if you're new to the channel, you haven't had a chance to hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button for your boy. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. But I do have a lot more coming for you guys as well. And let's see. Are there any more questions before let's see if I missed anyone's question. Oh, this is funny right here. So I guess I'll end with this comment here. So Boogie124 says, how do you feel about Cordero recruiting efforts? I think that it's pretty cool that Cordell Patterson doesn't take himself that serious. And one thing I can respect about Cordell Patterson is the guys that he wants the Falcons to sign are actually good players. Recently, he put up on his Twitter, Falcons, please sign Khalil Mack and the linebacker from the Vikings, Kendricks. So one thing I can say about Cordell Patterson is when he does recruit, all of the guys that he's been trying to recruit are guys that I think that we want on the Falcons. Earlier, he was trying to recruit Deron Payne to the Atlanta Falcons before he was tagged. So I really think that that's pretty cool that Cordell Patterson doesn't take himself that serious and that he kind of tampers on Twitter for the Atlanta Falcons. But as you know, if you've seen Arthur Smith talk about Cordell Patterson during the season and stuff like that, they don't take Cordell Patterson too serious. So I definitely think that's pretty cool that he's a guy that recruits for the team and kind of, is a fan outside of the game, a fan of other players, and he's trying to recruit guys to come play with him in Atlanta. So with that being said, this being your boy Jew, I have a lot more content coming for you guys. As always, Falcons Nation, I really appreciate each and every one of you guys. We'll be back next Wednesday night for What's the Word, Dirty Bird. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you have questions that maybe a prospect video you would like me to drop, definitely hit that comment, put it in the comment section. Let your boy know if you have like a player that you would like me to do a video on, or maybe a topic that you would like me to talk about on the channel, or maybe a topic you want me to talk about in the next live show. Definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that like button for your boy, and continue to tune in to each and every one of our channels. Make sure you go over to Mad Mike Sports, hit that like and subscribe button, hit that like and subscribe button for my boy K Styles, and also go over to Atlanta Falcons Nation, hit that like and subscribe button there as well, and the Unholy Alliance. To any of our affiliates, definitely go over and hit that like and subscribe button for them as well. But with that being said, this been your boy Jew. I'll holler at you guys. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace.